I the a-hole for choosing to go on a trip with my girlfriend instead of taking care of my struggling brother's son? For context, my 24 male, brother Luke 31 male, his wife Emma 28 female, and their son Kyle 4 male moved to my city last year because Emma got a new job. They would occasionally ask me to watch Kyle because I work from home with very flexible hours. I personally do not like kids at all, but I was happy to do it at a time because I wanted to help them. It was not that often, maybe once or twice every 2 weeks, and Kyle was very well behaved. Now, the issue started near the end of last year when Luke decided to change careers. He was previously working remotely as well, but his new job required him to go to work as a lot more often and make substantially less money. This left them depending on me more and more to take care of Kyle. It went from once or twice every 2 weeks to around 3 days out of the week. To make matters worse, Kyle's behavior changed drastically. To be completely honest, I can barely stand a kid anymore, constantly running around and screaming while I'm trying to work, and just overall being a little turd. My sister-in-law Emma was over the other day picking up Kyle and made some comments about getting rid of some of the dangerous furniture in my house, like tables with glass edges and stuff, so that my home is safer for their son, and made a joke about baby-proofing my house because they're planning to have a daughter. This ticked me off, but I didn't say anything. The situation hit a breaking point last Friday when I was talking about the 1.5-week-long trip I was going on with my girlfriend on the 15th. Me and my girlfriend like to travel somewhere nice at least once a month. We could not the past couple months because of Kyle, but I promised my girlfriend we would go somewhere exotic for Valentine's. Upon hearing this, they got pretty mad, asking who was gonna take care of Kyle, and that I need to stop these childish trips, and that I need to take more responsibility because I'm an uncle now. I'm not gonna lie, after hearing this, I've freaking snapped. I said that their demon child isn't my responsibility, and I'm not just gonna give up my life because they did it without a rubber. It got pretty obscene from there and some horrible things were said. They left, and we are now no longer on speaking terms. My parents and Emma's parents are on their side and extremely angry at me for refusing to pull my weight. My parents said that this is my duty, and I should be sacrificing everything to help them. It honestly got me really down, and I've cried my eyes pretty much every day since seeing those messages from my family. I'm starting to wonder if I really should be taking more responsibility. Am I the a-hole for choosing my trips over my brother and nephew? Not the a-hole. Sounds like your and Emma's parents need to start doing their duty and watching their grandchild. If they're not willing to do that, all their huffing and puffing that you need to watch Kyle is just hot air. This is not your child, and you have no weight to pull. This just reeks of trying to gang up on you because you're the youngest and you're nice, and they think you're going to cave. Stay strong and keep your boundaries. As an uncle myself, the most responsibility we should be given is to tucker out the nieces and nephews at family gathering and nothing more. Emergency childcare, sure, but suddenly the third parent? Hell no. Sounds more like they think uncle is a free nanny in daycare. They abuse his willingness to help. The uncle has all the right in the world to take his girlfriend on a trip. He could have been a lot more thoughtful and could have managed to go to the in-laws for help. Sounds like the grandparents don't like to pull that weight in raising the grandkids. Not the a-hole. Stay strong in your decision. The fact that they are planning a second child with you as their childcare answer is scary. You need to make it clear that you don't run a daycare facility. Otherwise, you will have a demon child, plus a squawking baby needing diaper changes, feedings, etc. at your home during your work hours. Not the a-hole. Your family are guilting you because none of them can be asked to take care of the son either. Sorry this is happening to you, OP, but stand your ground. You're 100% right. Sounds like your brother and sister-in-law have become entitled to your help and forgotten what it's like to be solely responsible for your kid, so they've begun relying on your help. But as you so rightfully pointed out, this is totally a them problem. Your parents are probably joining in because they know if you stop looking after Kyle altogether, they'll be relied on a lot more. Also, about your outburst, yeah, maybe not the best way to react, but they pushed you to breaking point and you snapped. Also, they were being rude and unreasonable in their expectations, so I don't expect you to respond 100% calmly and rationally either. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not splitting my daughter's college fund? When my 42 female daughter's 17 female was 7, we lost her father to an avoidable accident. Due to that and a subsequent settlement, my daughter was able to have a trust fund of sorts that provided for college, grad school if she wanted, and even some left over for whatever life might bring. It is money that, if managed wisely, would enable her to have a head start in life. She knows about this, and is never taken for granted given where the money came from. After all, we'd both rather have her father around than the money. That said, life moves on, and I remarried 6 years after my husband's passing to a lovely man who has 2 children of his own, 17 female and 13 male. All of the children live with us primarily, with his children seeing their mother on vacations as she lives across the country. This year, both our girls are graduating and should be headed to college. My daughter was admitted to her dream school last year and is ecstatic about it. Her father was an alumnus, and she has this old sweatshirt of his that she kept to remind her of him. She cried so much when she got in, and both her stepfather and I were proud of her because she worked hard to get in. My stepdaughter will also be attending a wonderful school that is one of the top-ranked schools for her interests. The problem now arises with the money to pay for stepdaughter's school, because her parents cannot afford to pay the tuition in its entirety. Stepdaughter will have to take some loans. All told, she will graduate with about $40,000 in loans, which I think is still quite modest for the school she's attending, and her earning prospects post-graduation. But my daughter will graduate debt-free, and for my husband, this is suddenly a problem. He wants us to split my daughter's fund between all 3 kids, because then they could all probably have college fully paid for. My daughter won't have much left over, and will definitely need to borrow for grad school, which she has expressed interest in attending. But according to my husband, that's okay because everyone will start off on an equal footing post-college. I think this is unfair to my daughter because 1, her father had to die for this money, and 2, this is like her inheritance from him. My husband thinks that they are all siblings and she should be happy to share the money with them if it means giving her siblings a head start in life. I absolutely do not want to put her in the position of being guilted into saying yes if she doesn't want to. I've expressed all of this to my husband and he thinks that I'm being selfish, that I'm teaching my daughter to be selfish, and I obviously don't consider my stepkids the same as my daughter. Am I the a-hole for wanting to protect my daughter's trust for her as it was intended? Edited to add, since I've seen this a few times already, both kids do have college funds but somewhat smaller because my husband and his ex got their finances in order later in life. So there is some money, but with the caliber of the school that stepdaughter will be attending, she will still need some loans to cover costs. I haven't brought up going to a cheaper school because that will be a fresh set of problems given where my daughter will be matriculating. Now for the top comments. Info. This is a difficult situation to judge as written. My question for you is this. Who has paid for your daughter's needs since you and your husband married? Has he contributed at all to her food, clothing, shelter, school-related expenses, extracurriculars, family trips, etc.? Or were those expenses borne solely by you and or the fund? Because if your current husband has contributed to his stepdaughter's expenses, I can see how he might think, I've spent thousands supporting this young woman over the years, money that could have come from her fund. Both my husband and I paid for things, because we both have careers and didn't nickel and dime in one another about who was buying what for whose kid. Not the a-hole. That settlement was for your deceased husband's children, not your future children, and certainly not someone else's. I agree, not the a-hole. The money is for your deceased husband's children, not your current husband's children. Keep your stance. This is your daughter's money from her father. The other children have money from their father. To me, your current husband is the a-hole for even suggesting it. Right? This needs to be nipped in the bud and not even open for discussion. OP. This is her inheritance from her father. It is from his death. Circumstances stole her father from her. I am not going to take away what he was able to give her. This is not open for discussion. Also, $40,000 is not that bad, and if she doesn't want that, she can go elsewhere. That's not necessarily for you to bring up, but her father should. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not giving my son my car to pay off his debt? Let's start from the very beginning. Over 20 years ago, I divorced my then wife. I had 2 kids with her, my oldest son and my youngest daughter. I always had a very good relationship with my son. He was my one and only. At age 17, my son moved in with me and my girlfriend. I always try to get my daughter to move in too, but she refused. I tried to make it nice for us, but soon I realized that having another mouth to feed was emptying my bank account faster than I could see. I soon jumped from workplace to workplace and asked all my friends for money which I barely was able to pay back. So, I started asking my son for money. He paid for groceries here and there over the years. Then he helped me with some bills and even got a credit card on his name for us to use, since I couldn't get one due to my debt. It went well for a few years, but still my money was always on the low. I forgot to pay my car insurance for a few months and they ended my contract. So I created a new one with my son's name on it. I asked him, of course, as always, so he always knew what he was getting himself into. Soon, he moved out and moved in with his girlfriend. She was a very nice girl, or so I thought. He soon asked me to pay him back some money since now he had some credit card debt. He did the math and it summed up to around $10,000. I really didn't have that kind of money and he knew that, and he soon went no contact. He visited me and we talked normally for some time. Then he started asking me for my car. He asked me if I could give him my car so he could sell it to pay off his debts. I told him no immediately. I needed a car for my new job since it was in the neighboring city. He told me to take the train and bus and that there were cheap tickets and my job could help me get a permanent ticket. I told him that I couldn't do that. That was at the end of 2021. I told him if I didn't have the money for his debt until January of 2022, he could have a car. After that conversation, he went no contact again. January came and I didn't have the money. I really couldn't bring it up and I told him that. He asked me about my promise and a car, but I know I didn't promise him anything. I told him I still need a car. We had a long fight over the phone in which his girlfriend said that a loving father wouldn't do something like that to his son, with which she meant all the money I took from him. And with that statement, she was dead to me. I got diagnosed with depression due to the situation. I do regret my mistakes, but I think he made me suffer enough. I miss my son, but until he apologizes for treating me like this, I don't want to have anything to do with him either. I feel so torn. My daughter isn't there for me either. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. You're the a-hole and the worst kind of deadbeat. He's worse than a deadbeat. He's racking up debt in his son's name and refusing to pay him back. There's a 0% chance the son's credit card debt isn't related to Opie's spending. I like how it's also somehow the new girlfriend's fault, who Opie thought was a nice girl, that the son doesn't want to be financially used anymore. I was waiting for why she wasn't nice. Oh, she dared stand up for her son. Jeez, you're the a-hole, Opie. I'm the daughter and my father, Opie, sent me this post so I can defend him in the comments. I won't be doing that though, lol. Please take this deadbeat to court and use this post as evidence he agreed to pay your brother back. Let me tell you something. My brother took my father to court together with a computer firm. My father bought an $800 screen under my brother's name but couldn't pay for it, so the company sued my brother. He then went to a lawyer to show him other things he's done under my brother's and even my name, things I didn't even know about. He could clear his name and is now going to court with a company against my father. Your father is a trash. I'm sorry you and your siblings have a selfish mooch of a father. Last story. Am I the a-hole for calling the police when the people I was babysitting for would not answer their phone? Hi, I'm 14 and I babysit for a few people in my neighborhood. On Friday, I was babysitting for a couple that moved into the city from the south. They're only a block from my house, so my parents were okay with me staying there until 10 as they said they would be home by 9. They did not get home at 9. At 9:45, I started texting them to see if they were on the way. Then I called my parents. My mom came over because I was getting worried. It had snowed pretty bad on Friday and they weren't answering. At 11:30, we phoned the police as I was freaking out. The police got their names and address and I guess found their license plates like that. They found them in about 25 minutes. They were at their friend's house. They called me and they were mad that I called the police. I promise, I wouldn't have called the police if they had answered my texts or calls, and my mom was concerned as well. I didn't call to get them in trouble. I was worried. But they told my mom that I'm not mature enough to be babysitting if that's how I'm going to behave. I feel kind of bad that the police made them come home from their friend's house. But I think that they should have answered the phone. What if there was something wrong with their kids? Not the a-hole. The parents were taking advantage of you. You did everything you should have, including trying to reach them, contacting your mother, and then contacting the police. You've done nothing wrong. The parents are angry at being caught out on bad behavior. Yes, this was the epitome of maturity. Opie had valid reasons to be worried. They were the jerks here, not you, OP, and not your mom. If they were responsible parents, they would have answered your calls. Or, gasp, gotten home on time as promised? Don't let them get you. Not the a-hole. 1. You are a literal child. 2. They gave you an undertaking and failed to keep it or inform you. 3. You attempted to contact them first. 4. You sought advice from an adult, your mom. 5. They disrespected not only you, but your parents who were comfortable allowing you out until 10, not early midnight. 6. You had no option to just go home when they didn't show, because you were still responsible for their children. They're a-holes, and you should warn other babysitters off them. Not the a-hole OP. But for clarity, I think they only phoned police at 11:30. It then took 25 minutes for police to locate them. At the very least, it would be another half hours for them to be home because police are gonna do a quick interview there and then, before releasing them home. It's gonna be well after midnight. Never babysit for them again, OP. Not the a-hole. 3 things. 1. You said they moved to your city from the south. I assume you mean a state that doesn't get a lot of snow? I live in Canada, and when it snows here, the people who have lived here their entire lives forget how to drive. They could have been in an accident. 2. They were jerks for not giving you the phone number of the place they were going to be. Cell phones run out of power and get left in purses. They should have given you contact information. 3. You got advice from your mom. You didn't do this without thinking it through, or out of spite. You had legitimate concerns, and they were enough for your mom to agree that calling the police was a good idea. You did the exact right thing. They were upset because a 14-year-old girl was more responsible than they were. Am I the a-hole for not paying for my niece's operation with my wedding fund? I, female 30, have an older brother, Thomas, 43. His first wife passed, leaving him with my niece, and he remarried 2 years later. My dad and uncle inherited 2 lands from my grandfather. Dad left his land after it was split for me and Thomas, but Thomas sold it without my knowledge and kept all the money for himself. I couldn't do anything about it because I barely had money for college, and because sister-in-law said if I tried to do anything about it, I'd never see my niece. But I went no contact and couldn't establish a relationship with my niece anyway, even though I used to take care of her when she was little. She's now 16, born with a health condition and had her first operation at the age of 1. I later inherited the other land my uncle had after he disowned Thomas. I sold it and spent money on necessities, and used the rest to fund my wedding soon. Thomas reached out recently and we spoke a few times. He kept mentioning my niece struggling with her health condition again. He asked if I wanted to meet her, but I wanted time. After a few more conversations, he said he needs help paying for her upcoming surgery and asked if I could help with money. He brought up Uncle's land and the money I put aside for my wedding. I was shocked. He asked where he knew all that, and he said he's been talking to a mutual friend and he told him everything. This mutual friend said Thomas spent the money from the land on several expensive golfing trips and anniversary celebrations with his wife, and is now in debt struggling to pay for my niece's medical expenses. I said sorry, but there was nothing I can do to help. He kept trying to convince me that my wedding can wait and my niece should matter to me, reminding me that I'm the only family he got left, and I should consider helping him for my niece's sake, not his. I reminded him of what he did to me years ago, and how it left me to struggle for myself. I said he was lucky I didn't sue him for the money he owed me, but he said that this was his wife's idea, and he was stupid and regretted listening to her. Then said I could still sue them, but since they'll go to jail because they can't pay me back, then my niece becomes my responsibility. He said I could hate him all I want, but he's just asking for my niece. He pressured me to go see her, but I felt highly uncomfortable doing that. We had a heated argument after he tried to get my fiancé to postpone the wedding. I ended up telling him to leave, and he said it was okay, we'll talk again. But I said all I had to say. He had to let my friends know. They asked what's wrong with me prioritizing wedding over my niece. Thomas then emailed me saying I can't blame him for trying to help his kid, and that he knew I'm a better person than he is, and I will do this out of goodness of my heart. He said he'd pay me back with his wife's inheritance once her father passes, which he doesn't know when, but he hoped soon enough. I'm still dumbfounded by what he said. Thing is, I've always wanted a good wedding. And because I got stuck with student loans for so long, I still live in a small place. Still haven't gone on trips I wanted. Still haven't achieved most of what I wanted. I'm 30 and feel like life already passed me by. If I let Thomas get my wedding fund, then I'll have to start saving for my wedding. Now for the top comments. Not day home. Anyone who's harassing you about this is not your friend. It may be that he has given them a twisted version of his narrative and you can clear that up. But if they continue to harass you about delaying your wedding and giving your money to your brother for his child, then they are definitely not your friends. OP, listen to the above. Also, if you do change your mind about helping financially with your niece's surgery, ask for a copy of the bill and pay the hospital or treatment facility directly. Do not give your brother money, as he's untrustworthy. Also, make sure you get your brother and his wife to sign notarized statements stating that they owe you that money back, with interest, or you will never see it again. Funny the brother hasn't mentioned the money as a loan anywhere, except the father-in-law comment. He and his wife, fully expect the money as a righteous gift. The money stole from Opie should have been put aside for the medical needs they knew were coming. Not day-hole. Not day-hole. He said that this was his wife's idea, and he was stupid and regretted listening to her. If him stealing your money was all his wife's idea and has regretted it since, why didn't he give you a call prior to being in debt and his daughter needing a surgery? Someone who is truly guilted would have got in contact sooner just to apologize. Don't give him the money believing that he's going to let you see your niece or have any sort of family dynamic with him. As soon as he'd have the money, he'd disappear again. Don't put yourself through such emotional and financial turmoil. If you have rented a food, venue, cake, etc., have passwords with the vendors in case he even tries to call them saying that the wedding has been postponed/cancelled. He's crossing lines by talking to your circle. OP, just say the money he stole from you is the money you already gave him. Not day-hole. He sold his land and squandered the money carelessly, knowing his daughter has a health condition that would require further medical treatment. You were cut off from seeing your niece for all these years, and now she's basically a stranger to you that just happens to share some DNA. If you had been part of her life all along, it would be different. As it stands, he was irresponsible in planning to care for his daughter's medical issues, and now he's manipulating you into giving up part of your inheritance and delay your wedding to cover for his failure. You're definitely not a day-hole. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not paying for my sick brother's chemo treatment after receiving a large inheritance from my grandfather? I am a 26-year-old woman. When my grandfather passed away, he wrote in his will that his inheritance would be divided amongst his wife and his oldest grandchild, me. He believed my brother would be way too young at the time of his death to inherit any money. He was a very wealthy man, but no money went to my parents, because frankly they did not have the best relationship with him, especially my mom, who is his daughter. Not that they needed it anyways. My parents have plenty of money already. I spent a lot of time with my grandpa, and we got along well. I'd say he even parented me better than my parents ever could, and I was devastated when he died. When I got my share of the inheritance, I expected a lot of family who never talked to me before to suddenly start asking for favors. And they did, especially my parents for some reason. The final straw came when my mother asked me if I could pay for my brother's, his 15, chemo treatments, considering that I was technically rich now. I had never had a large amount of money, even with having wealthy parents. And as soon as I turned 18, they kicked me out and decided I needed to live on my own. My father gave me $1,700, and that was it, and they hardly talked to me. In fact, you could say they are the reason my grandfather gave me this money in the first place. He would always bring up how I seemed to be struggling. Finally, I thought of this, turned to my mother and basically said that my brother was not my responsibility, and that they have plenty of money to pay for his chemo treatments. Because now that I'm basically set for life, I would like to spend my money getting myself together and preparing for my own children. I told them I still loved him, but I just couldn't take on the responsibility of a child that I didn't even birth. Heck, I spent most of my childhood raising him when they didn't want to, and I was done being responsible for him. Of course, this didn't go over well with her, and she started yelling and cursing me out over the phone. I hung up, not wanting to hear another word of it. Over several days, I kept getting messages and calls, even Facebook posts of other family members calling me ungrateful, evil, and spoiled. Truthfully though, I knew in my heart that this was probably the best decision I could make for myself. I finally had the chance to be selfish. I didn't want to be used by my parents anymore. My brother will be fine as they have the money to do it themselves. They just want to once again throw that responsibility on me. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. This isn't even about affordability. As you mentioned, they can afford a treatment. They're just cheap and entitled and don't want to pay for it themselves. This isn't your issue. For anyone coming at you, remind them that your parents can more than afford a treatment. It's not your kid. Then cut ties as they have proven they aren't worth your time. Probably as their part in the inheritance. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. A lot of these commenters must have missed the part that said my parents have plenty of money already. Some people's children. Shaking my damn head. Exactly this. And even if they don't, then it is still unfair to expect OP to pay. Not the a-hole. When your grandfather passed away, his inheritance became yours. It doesn't matter one bit whether you inherited it, earned it, or won it in a lottery. It is your money, and you're not responsible for your brother's treatment. Your parents sound like massive a-holes for trying to bully you into it, especially as they can afford it themselves. You've done nothing wrong here. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for leaving my sister and her kids at the mall? I, 23 female, moved out of my parents' house 2 years ago because my sister, 32, and her husband, 33, have made a house uninhabitable if you aren't catering to his kids. They're loud, throw tantrums at a drop of a hat, and are very needy. I've asked to not be involved with their kids, as I have severe trauma and issues with spending long periods of time with especially small children that need to rely on adults for most things. My sister used to get on my back for not accepting her stepkids, when in reality I don't accept most children, as they cause panic attacks and worse when left in my care or presence. Recently, I've been trying to rekindle our relationship with obvious baby steps. I invited my sister out to the mall and asked that it just be us. She agreed, and we met up this Saturday. However, she brought her stepdaughter Cassandra, 7, and her stepson Caleb, 10. I tried to grin and bear it, but things got to a pretty unacceptable level for me pretty quickly. My sister kept picking up items, and then leaving me at the register with her kids to pay, with my card. Or she sent her kids up to me and telling them to, ask Auntie to buy these for you. And I didn't want to look like an A, so I'd buy the items. She then left me alone with the kids at the food court while she stopped, but she told me she'd be right back. Ended up spending 45 minutes shopping around. When we finally met back up, I was fed up and told her I was leaving. She asked me to let her take the kids home so we could shop and hang out, but I was already over it. My mother and father are calling me an a-hole for leaving her alone with the kids, and her husband is calling me a hateful witch for not accepting his kids and not stepping up as their only aunt. He doesn't talk to his sisters, and I'm my sister's only sibling. Am I the a-hole? Edit. I do not mistreat these kids or ignore them. I send birthday/Christmas presents and birthday cards as often as my wallet allows. They know I exist, and I plan to handle my trauma, again baby steps, at a pace that's appropriate for me and be more involved eventually. Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. Your sister wasn't there to spend time with you. She was there to take advantage of you. At least now Opie can move on from this relationship knowing she tried. Not the a-hole. She didn't want to spend time with you. She wanted someone to pay for stuffs. I would go low contact on the whole family, to be honest. He doesn't talk to his sisters, and I'm my sister's only sibling. Join the rest of the family. Next story. Am I the a-hole for asking my fiancé to get a house of her own? So me, 27 male, and my fiancé, 27 female, are getting married in a year or 2. We aren't in a rush. We've been talking about finances and stuff like that. And we've been having some honest conversations about the future, specifically what we do in case of a divorce. The main sticking point is the house. In the event of a divorce and she wants half the house, which I think is unreasonable given that I paid a mortgage. It's now paid off, and it's my name on the title deed. But I understand where she's coming from. If we broke up 10 years from now, then she'd have no major assets to speak of, which would be bad for her. I get that. So I suggested a solution. As we both make good money, and right now she can easily afford a down payment on a house of her own. She has good credit, and so it's going to be easy for her to get a mortgage with favorable terms. If the terms of the contract are good, she might be able to rent out the house as she pays off the mortgage, and pay the mortgage with rent money. This, in my eyes, is a win-win scenario. If we stay together, she gets an asset that she can sell or do whatever she wants with. And if we break up, she has a house. But she's having none of it, and tells me that I can't tell her how to spend her money. I mean, fair enough. So I asked her to sign a prenup, which basically said that in the event of a divorce, the house would be mine and all other assets, if any, would be split equitably. She's refusing to sign that as well, saying that I should just trust her. I do, but having a backup plan would make me feel much better and calm my nerves. I said that I'm not going to put myself in a situation where there's even a remote chance that I might lose the house that I've worked hard for. It's one of my red lines. So am I the a-hole? Also, we live together right now, and we split everything 50-50 including housework. We cook for each other on alternate days and we eat out for one day. Not the a-hole. She didn't put a dime into the house. Why should she expect to get half of it if you split up? Marriage law is weird. She wouldn't get half the house, but she would be entitled to half of the appreciation of the house. So if the house is worth $100,000 when we get married and if it's worth $600 when we split up, then I'd be on the hook for $250,000, which I might not have in cash. So I might have to sell the house to pay the $250,000. All that depends on how much the house appreciates. If you are already planning a divorce, then do not get married without a prenup. That would be a terrible financial decision. No one plans to get a divorce when they marry, just like no one plans to have a house fire or for a tornado to rip the roof off the house. Yet sometimes it happens, and if it does happen, it's dumb not to make sure that your assets are protected. Info: what would you do with the house? Why not let her buy half of your house or you win this equally? Or sell it and buy one together? If you're going to retain sole ownership, then she shouldn't pay anything for maintenance/renovation/upkeep. Is this your plan? Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to pay back my parents for sending me to a private school when I was 12/13? So, my 17 female parents used to be very strict growing up. When I first started secondary school, I used to be a rebellious child, which is something I have always admitted and apologized for. It is also a phase I have grown out of a pretty long time. Because of my actions, my parents decided it would be a good idea to send me to a strict private school which they think improved my behavior, but in all honesty, I think I've just grown up. My dad first brought this up a few years ago when I was 15, that I need to pay back $20,000 for the school fees. And at first, I genuinely thought he was joking, but now he's bringing it up again and again, especially now that I'm earning my own money. I would maybe understand them if I was still misbehaving, but I literally get straight A's and A+. Haven't had a detention in forever and never answer them back. I don't understand why my parents are asking me to pay this money when they're the ones that sent me there in the first place. I can't believe I'm already in debt by my own parents, and I haven't even started college yet. Would love some input if I'm overreacting and how I should approach them when they bring it up again. Not a hole. My flip response is laughing in their face about expecting to be paid back, as a way to approach them bringing it up again. I guess reality would be no. I feel you made a choice to do that and I was a child then. You weren't in debt to them. Tell them to take it small claims. Not really. I hope he doesn't owe this money. Also, they sent her for being rebellious, which was probably normal behavior. Not an a-hole. And don't even think about paying anything. That was their choice. Until you were legally adult, they are responsible to feed and clothe you, provide safe roof over your head, and education. Not a hole. Your parents were the ones who chose to send you to the school. You didn't really have a choice. And while you were a rebellious child, but so were a lot of children. Talk to them and explain that since it was their idea to send you to the school, then it is on them to pay for it. As paying for things that they believe would better their child is, in a way, their jobs as parents. Am I the a-hole for asking my sister-in-law if she didn't want kids? Why did she get pregnant? So this title is bad, I acknowledge this, but allow me to introduce you to my sister-in-law, Laurel. Laurel married my brother around 5 years ago. They had always been child-free and extremely proud of it, which I'm to a point. She has always been disparaging of children and the idea of children, and consistently would judge other mothers around us for how they handled their own kids. She would comment rude things about people who would breastfeed in public, or even be bold enough to tell them, "You should cover up because my husband can see you too." Overall, Laurel doesn't like kids. Well, guess what? Laurel is pregnant now. And both her and my brother planned this pregnancy, so it's not an accident. The family was very excited. But Laurel has made a misery out of the entire pregnancy. And to be honest, we know she plans to make a misery out of her poor kid's life as well. The baby is a girl, and she'll say things like, I don't want to deal with her long hair, so I'll shave it off to keep it maintainable. Or, I hate dresses. I'll never let her wear those. She refuses to let us buy the baby toys or anything enjoyable, saying that the child won't want those till they're like 3 years old. I don't even like babies, but I know that's a complete lie. I finally snapped when she was at a family dinner. She kept telling us how terrible it was to have to get the baby's room ready, and how she hated having to buy everything for it. How this kid was already so expensive and wasn't even here yet, and making her life miserable. I asked her why she got pregnant if she didn't want this kid. That was a bowling ball catastrophe. And even though my brother often tells me he asks the same thing, apparently Laurel doesn't like getting called out about her behavior toward her unborn child. Am I the a-hole for asking her if she didn't want kids, why did she get pregnant? Edit. Something else I'd like to add. Laurel's currently 35. She isn't young, and neither is my brother. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. For Pete's sake, somebody had to ask. How does the brother not even know? How did this not come up during the planning? This isn't even an elephant in the room. It's a blue whale. Oh, he knows. He's just not talking for some reason. Not today, home. She has his balls in her purse. This is a situation ripe for child mistreatment. OP should have CPS on speed dial, ready to push that button the moment they suspect the kid is being mistreated. Not today, home. But please plan on being the most awesome auntie ever. I have a feeling your niece will need someone in her life desperately. Heck yeah. Even if Laurel decides to cut it off with me, and by extension my brother because she has him in her pocket, I'll always be here for that kid in the future. Next story. Am I the a-hole for moving to avoid adopting my niece? My cousin had been on a bit of a wild child strike and ended up in prison. She got out and had her daughter, which made everyone think she's going to get it together. Well, she didn't. And my aunt had to take over all the parenting duties to keep CPS from taking her away. My aunt is now in her 50s and not healthy enough to care for my niece, who has started acting out the same way as her mother. My cousin flits in and out of my niece's life and taken her back occasionally, only to bring her back to my aunt when she can't handle her anymore. The child has been in juvie already, and it seems she's going the same way as my cousin. My aunt is running out of options as my niece runs around town, and she isn't healthy enough to drive around searching for her in the middle of the night. So my aunt is trying to get the rest of the family to take care of her, but everyone refuses. My aunt is now pressuring me to adopt my cousin, who is 14. She doesn't mean legally, but to assume responsibility until the age of 18. My family is also taken to pressuring me since it will mean the pressure's taken off them. Also, most of them have person problems, kids. I don't want my niece to ruin their kids, while I don't have any. I absolutely don't want to. I don't want my cousin in my life, which will be inevitable if I adopt my niece. And my niece? She's basically my cousin on steroids. I have no idea how my cousin and niece ended up so messed up, and I don't want to wait to see my own life be ruined if I have to take care of my niece. Hell, I resisted not getting a dog during the pandemic because I couldn't commit to one long term, so there's no way I can commit to a child. I get emails and texts, and my aunt's banging on my door semi-frequently, once a week, dragging my niece in tow trying to get me to let her in. I have literally been in tears begging them to leave me alone. But we all live 2 to 3 hours away from each other, and only my mom is telling me not to do it. My boyfriend noticed the craziness from my family, and the midnight phone calls from my aunt trying to get me to come pick her up, and ask what we should do. I told him I just didn't want to be involved, and he suggested we move. We've been thinking of moving for a while now, actually. His family's in Oregon, and I've been thinking of moving for a few years. His family has a house that they are trying to rent out, and we could try there for a few weeks. We did that, and we're now in Oregon. I know my family aren't going to chase me here, and it's quiet. We went back to Arkansas for a few days to pack up what's left and visit some old friends. Somehow, someone let it slip I was coming because my aunt is at my door screaming at me for leaving without a word. My boyfriend calls his friend to come help us take the rest of our stuff, and we leave. Then I see my aunt drop to her knees crying, and now I feel horrible since she's such a proud woman, and I've never seen her like this. I know what's best for me, not adopting my niece. But am I the a-hole here? 100% not the a-hole. In my opinion, what she is asking you is completely insane. Do not feel bad. You did what you had to do. Your aunt is in a horrible situation, but it is not your fault and not your responsibility to fix. My family's also taken to pressuring me since it will mean the pressure is taken off them. Definitely not the a-hole. Notice how everyone else wants you to do it, so they don't have to. You made a right choice. This reminds me of a saying I once heard. Raise your kids right or raise your grandkids. Sounds like she's trying to force the grandkid onto someone else after failing to raise her own kid. Not the a-hole. Sorry you had to get run out of your own home to avoid all this crazy. But on the upside, Oregon is a nice place. Underrated wine country too. Also, do try to find out who the rat is that told your aunt had cut them out like cancer. Not the a-hole. Your cousin's child is not your child, and not your responsibility. I feel sorry for this girl as her mother has clearly done a number on her. She may also be acting out because she feels like no one wants her. As tragic as that is, again, this is not a burden that you should have to assume. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for turning my plate around after being served dinner by my mother-in-law? My husband, 29 male, and I, 23 female, have been married for a year, but have been together for almost 3 years now. We are currently staying with my in-laws for 2 weeks, whilst our house gets painted. My sister-in-law and her husband and 2 kids are also living with my in-laws as well. Sadly, my mother-in-law doesn't like me very much, as she wanted my husband to marry one of her friend's daughter, who was also his ex. But I still try to be as friendly as possible with her, since she's my husband's mother. I just want to add that we could have stayed in a hotel, but my mother-in-law insisted that my husband stay with them. So, I was helping my mother-in-law cook dinner. We made a simple dish of salmon and some veggies, and she plated the food and placed them on the dinner table whilst I were making our dessert. I had made an apple crumble beforehand, but it was too sweet for her liking, so she told me to make it again. After we all sat down to eat, I noticed the way my plate was oriented, and the salmon was on the right and the veggies were on the left. For nearly everyone, this isn't a big deal and wouldn't bother them. But I have a bit of a quirk that my meat/fish should always be on the left, and any vegetables or sides should be on the right. It's very hard to explain, but unless I move my food around so that the meat is on the left and anything else is on the right, I find it very hard to eat and swallow. To solve this issue, I just turned my plate in 180 degrees so that the salmon would be on the left and the veggies on the right. I didn't say anything or make any expression. But my mother-in-law noticed me turning my plate around and start to blow up. She said that moving something that was already set on the table was bad manners, and couldn't believe how rude I was being in her house. I apologized and tried to explain that I just had this thing where one thing needs to be on a certain side, but she interrupted me and went on a tangent saying that this shows how immature I am, and that my husband's ex never behaved like this. My husband tried to calm her down, saying that we shouldn't argue whilst having dinner, but then she started complaining about how I couldn't cook, because whilst making dinner together, she kept having a problem with how big I cut the veggies, even though they were perfectly normal sized, and how bad of a wife I was for not being able to do simple things. Throughout the entire meal, she kept complaining, and I felt horrible. It was pretty much on the verge of tears. My sister-in-law later told me that her kids are more mature than I am, and my husband also got annoyed at me, and said I ruined dinner for the whole family, and this whole mess could have been avoided if I had done nothing. I now feel horrible for ruining dinner, especially since my husband works a lot and doesn't see his family often. Now for the comments. Not the a-hole, but your mother-in-law, sister-in-law, and dear husband are. They sound like toxic people. Your husband should have your back here. Go stay in a hotel, for your sanity if anything. And find a good divorce lawyer as well. This is mistreatment. What a horribly vindictive family. And how incredibly telling it is for your husband to gang up on you. All because you turned your plate around? Turned your plate around? What planet are these people from where turning your plate around is even noticed? This was absolutely a setup by mother-in-law, who intended to do this to you so she could bring up the ex. And sister-in-law took the opportunity to make you feel worse, and your husband piled on the first opportunity. Unless he's willing to go through some serious therapy to fix these massive issues, you will eventually divorce. I would cut my losses at this point if he isn't immediately, genuinely, and completely apologetic. You have done nothing wrong in this, even if you had cut the vegetables wrong. Not the a-hole. Your mother-in-law and sister-in-law are looking for an excuse to put you down. It didn't matter if you were perfect. They would have found something. I'm more concerned that your husband didn't 100% have your back while you were being mistreated by his family. I know you didn't ask for advice, but this sounds like it could be a very troublesome marriage. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister that her infertility is not my problem? I'm 18 female and 34 weeks pregnant. My sister is 35 female and suffers with infertility. She has no kids and is starting to look into adoption. When I told her I was pregnant, she immediately started going crazy. She said it's not fair, that I'm abusing my fertility, and that I should give my baby up because I have life to live. It's been like this my entire pregnancy. Most recently, she started asking me if I want to try a co-parenting relationship with her, where I give her my baby 2 days of the week and make her a legal custodian. I said no to this one too. She also keeps asking me to adopt my baby to her, and it's just not happening. She came over for brunch this morning and brought up the idea of her adopting my baby. I am very much prepared for. This time, I snapped and said to her, I don't understand what it's like not to be able to have children, but your fertility is not my problem to solve, and I am not giving you my child. Please don't push me. Everyone in the room thinks I am the a-hole for this, and my parents are giving me the cold shoulder for being so insensitive. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Do not let your sister babysit. Do not leave her alone with your child. 1 million times this. This is a true crime documentary waiting to happen. I think there was an episode like this of Twisted Sisters on Discovery ID. There was. She found out her sister was pregnant, lied to her husband that she was pregnant too, faked her entire pregnancy, gave birth alone a few days after her sister, then took her sister and new baby on a drive, offed her sister with a rock to the head and pushed her over a bridge. She took the baby home, and her husband returned, who then called the police when he realized the baby looked an awful lot like her sister's. She had blood on her and was not acting normal. Not the a-hole, because how many times do you have to say no? Tell her to accept the no and move on, because if she doesn't, then you're done talking to her until she does. Your parents are trying to comfort her, but not realizing they're just not acting right towards you. Talk to them. Tell them you shouldn't have to keep hearing it from her over and over again. Congratulations on your baby. Edited to add, I agree with others who have said to please do not ever leave your baby with your sister. She sounds desperate enough to take the baby and run. Yeah, no. You're not an a-hole for not giving away your child. How the hell does that even sound? How does this even cross someone's mind? This is so crazy to the point it sounds a little bit unreal. Not an a-hole. Given the fact that she's literally trying to beg, buy, or steal your baby, what you said is mild. Struggling with infertility is rough. I hope your sister recognizes that she needs therapy to cope, because she's clearly not coping well. Last story is titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my sister she won't get to babysit again while her boyfriend is around? I have a 4-year-old daughter and a 2-year-old son. I have a younger sister who about a year ago started dating a guy I went to high school with. The guy was not a good guy then, and he got into trouble, was arrested, treated others terribly, and did some things that show he is not a good person to have around kids. My sister is normally a really reliable and trustworthy person, but her taste in men has never been good. She dated a guy who had kids, didn't take care of them, and wanted to marry him. She dated a dealer for a while. She dated a guy who went to prison 2 months in and stayed with him for a few months after his release because she didn't believe his stealing from his brother's girlfriend was enough reason to break up. This current guy is still rough around the edges, to say the least. I met him twice since, and the second time he tried to pick a fight with my husband because they disagreed on a video game, and he, sister's boyfriend, was mad. We're talking real mad, to the point my husband had to just leave. My sister had babysat a couple of times for us in the past, and she loved doing it. Then 2 weekends ago, my husband and I were having a night out with friends. She offered to babysit, but I said it was okay, we already had plans made, which was true, but those plans were my husband's parents were out of the way. My sister realized this after my daughter told her that grandma gave her ice cream for dinner. My sister was hurt that I didn't make the easy decision of her. I told her I didn't feel comfortable leaving my kids with her while her boyfriend is around. She told me I judged him too hard. We talked at length about him before. She claims he has changed, that he was always misunderstood, etc. I told her she wasn't in school with him, and she didn't see his crap on a daily basis back then. I also pointed out his reaction over a video game disagreement, but she said he was just having a bad day. So I told her I wouldn't want him having a bad day around my kids. She said I should still trust her and rely on her to take care of my kids. I told her there will be no babysitting for her while he's around. She said he's going to be their uncle, so I better get used to him being around. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. People change from high school, but he clearly still has anger issues if he actually gets mad about a disagreement about video games. Opie has a duty to protect her children. I'd rather have hurt feelings than put my kids in a potentially dangerous situation. I told her I wouldn't want him having a bad day around my kids. Exactly my thoughts. If he blows up about video games and wants to fight a grown man, he's very likely to blow up at smaller annoyances. And kids, while I love them, can be annoying. Not stay home. Keep them away from him. Not stay home. She said he's going to be their uncle, so I better get used to him being around. Okay, she can marry whoever she wants. You can assign whoever you want as a babysitter. Am I the a-hole for refusing to go back to the family business after they kicked me out? Backstory. My uncle recently retired and gave a medium-sized business to my cousin. The first thing he did was not renewing my contract in the company and gave new positions to his friends and immediate family. I was mad about why I didn't get a new contract, even when I managed to hit my key performance indicator all the time, while his friends and immediate family didn't even hit their KPI most of the time. He just said that things are changing with him in charge, that sadly my services are no longer needed. I was pissed, but accepted my fate, and I began to search for a new job. A competitor company took interest of me and hired me. I joined the company as the pay is good, and I have been working for the company for 2 years and I managed to gain 2 positions up and beginning to be more involved with managerial roles. My cousin's company didn't do well, and during a family reunion, he asked me to come back as he needs people like me to save the company. I refused, and it caused some family fighting. As some said, I don't care about family, I only care about money. I replied with, what's stopping him from kicking me out again when the company is back on its feet? Sadly, that causes more conflict and fighting. Now my family and cousin's family is fractured because of this. Am I the a-hole for not helping my cousin's company after he kicked me out in the first place? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. He kicked you out when things were going well, and now wants you to help when things aren't anymore. You're entirely right to assume he would do it again if you helped him fix things at the company. People put too much stock in forgiving family no matter what. Sometimes families consist of a-holes like your cousin, and you are under no obligation to help him screw you over again. Not the a-hole. I'm gonna be blunt here. What you describe is a group of leeches, not family. Screw them, as they will screw you in a heartbeat when they get back on their feet. Did they yell at him for not caring about family and only caring about money when he fired you? No? Then they don't have a leg to stand on. You say, I didn't hear you yelling at him when he fired me and didn't care about family. Only money. So obviously I'm not family. So why would I go and bail him out? Next time you are so worried about family treating each other with value, you better look at all the family and treat them equally. Not the a-hole. You have a job that is working well for you right now. You're not under any obligation to leave that job to take a job because it's family. Where was the outrage when you were let go? Take care of yourself. If you don't feel it's worth leaving your current job, then don't. Plus, when the cousin totally tanks the business and it goes through a bankruptcy sale of assets, perhaps OP should consider buying it up for pennies on the dollar. Then do a successful reboot of the business. Not the a-hole, and don't you dare go back there. Cousin just wants to use you. He doesn't give a damn about you. How the hell are you gonna complain that you don't care about family? He didn't care about family much when he fired you, did he? Screw that guy. Not the a-hole. Also, what was his answer for what's stopping him from kicking you out again? That a family was so important, why were you let go? He said something along the lines of, my position is no longer relevant as they are not focusing on that part of the business anymore, when he kicked me out. Then during the reunion, he said that it's not fair for him to make promises of not kicking me out as business changes, and he gives some examples that he also needs to kick some of his longtime friends because of company restructuring. So it's not fair to give preferences to family members, the guarantee of not kicking me out again. Thinking about it, it's all more like bad management from his part rather than the employees not performing well. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for refusing to refund my parents after they spent over $2,000 to come to my wedding? I've 25 female never been in good terms with my parents since my mother, 45 female, has a princess complex that my father, 50 male, has no trouble condoning. Ever since I was a child, I had to make my happy moments about my mother because she gave me the gift of life. I had to get her presents on my birthday, my graduations, my most amazing moments in life. And when my college letter came, my father congratulated my mother instead of me and took her to celebrate. He showered her with gifts for the accomplishments I did, and I only got a good job baby every single time. Not only that, my mother was obsessed with the men I dated. She's young looking. It has taken care of herself all these years. This has caused people to believe that we're sisters instead of mother-daughter, and can't stand that anyone prefers me over her. Some of my boyfriends had broken up with me since they realized they were in love with my mother. I don't even know if she had cheated on my father with them or what. And at this point, I don't care. When I left for college, I went low contact and just did bare minimum so they kept paying for my expenses. I know, horrible, but meh. At some point, I met my now husband, Alan, 26 male. And at first, I was reluctant to introduce him to my parents since I thought I knew how it was all gonna end. It took me 2 years to finally take him home, and I don't know if it was all the things I told him about them or just luck, but Alan never gave her a second look, and did a bare minimum too. Obviously, this pissed my mother off, and when I was 24 after Alan proposed to me, I went no contact with him after a fight. Because Alan had the audacity to not get her something in a day so special for her. Planning the wedding made me sad. It made me realize that all these years I waited for them to change, and as naive as I was, I thought that my wedding could be the last chance. I called them a few months before, told them that I would love if my father walked me down the altar, and even offered to pay for their flights here at all of their expense. But I just asked them to please send me a photo of their outfits before they came, because I knew how my mother was. They fought at first, calling me disrespectful and all of that, but ended up accepting. They did it, and Mom had a blue/purplish dress. Nothing weird, so I said yes. But when they arrived, she was wearing a long white dress, very bridal looking, and I just couldn't. I asked them to leave, and after Alan threatened them to call the police, they did. After the party, they sent me the receipts to their flights, my mother's dress, and the hotel. I just replied with an F you, and told them that since they'd tricked me into thinking that my mother had another dress, then I wouldn't be paying them back. Not today, Hall. Your parents are just creepy weird AF by having your mother own every single accomplishment of your life. Sounds like a complete mind screw to deal with. So absolutely nothing wrong with what you did when they tried to pull that crazy gaslighting on your wedding day. Congrats on all your accomplishments that you earned, and in finding a partner that treats you right. Not today, Hall. Your mom must have some low self-esteem to try to attach herself to all of your accomplishments. Great job in putting her in her place when she showed up wearing white at your wedding. Wait until you have kids. She will probably want a push present once you give birth. It's called a glamour shower, where the grandma has a party and acts like she's one giving birth and gets baby gifts. Not today, Hall. It sounds like your mother is a narcissist and your father is an enabler. It's sad. I would stay no contact for them. And there are a few subreddits for narcissistic parents. Good luck. Also, you might want to go to some therapy to get to a good place about your relationship, or lack thereof, with your parents. Opie offered to pay for their plane trip if they came to the wedding, but she didn't agree to them trying to upstage her at her wedding. Also, the hotel and dress weren't even in the original deal. Not today, home. You made your expectations clear. Your mother chose to violate the most basic etiquette rule of weddings, and she deserved to miss out. Seriously, even a person living under a freaking rock knows not to wear white as a wedding guest. Hopefully your wedding was still a good day, and a good memory for you. Not today, home. No mother in her right mind would show up to their daughter's wedding in a white, bridal-looking dress. That is your day, and she did the old bait and switched figuring on turning it into her day. No. Just no. Not sure what parents expect to be provided reimbursement to attend an offspring's wedding anyway. But if your dad can afford to get her nice gifts for everyone else's accomplishments, certainly can afford a fare. I would have done the same. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my mother-in-law if she gives a photo as a housewarming gift, it will be returned? My husband and I are throwing a small housewarming party to celebrate buying our family home. There is a small problem that I want to know if I'm the a-hole over. My husband's parents are divorced and remarried with step-families. My husband is the youngest of 3 boys, and all 3 of them had a hard time with the divorce and remember their childhood before the divorce fondly. My in-laws don't, of course. What happened is my husband and I had some childhood photos up in our home. The 2 he put up are from before the divorce, back when he was the happiest, and when he felt like his family was his family, and he wasn't part of a broken family. Almost 20 years later, the 3 of them still feel like they have a broken family instead of a bigger family. There are some from after the divorce too, but you don't really see them as easily as the big ones on the wall. It bothers both of them, but my mother-in-law has been especially pushy about getting a big photo from her happiest time, when she married her current husband, and she has tried to get us to take one before. So, she mentioned having a very special gift for our housewarming, and how she was hoping I would take care of it. I asked her if it was a family portrait. She was confused what would matter, so I told her my husband had been clear, and she wasn't going to get it in around me. And in fact, if she gives one, it will be returned to her. She told me it's incredibly rude to reject a gift, and even ruder to reject one before it has been given. But I feel that it's rude to use a gift as a way to get your own way in someone else's house. Am I the a-hole though? Not the a-hole. Seems like you have clearly communicated to mother-in-law that the new family portrait would make your husband uncomfortable/sad. If that truly is the gift, it seems to be more for the mother-in-law's happiness than your family. Exactly. This isn't a gift for Opie and her husband. This is a gift from mother-in-law for mother-in-law. It is an obligation to Opie and her husband. You don't gift someone an obligation. Mother-in-law is selfish if that was the gift. And if that wasn't the gift, her reaction would have made that clear. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole, but I probably would have handled it differently. If she gave you the gift at housewarming, I would have addressed it then, or possibly after then, and returned it to her, or had your husband returned it to her. No need to stir up trouble before it appears. Probably more effective to return it after with a polite note from her son that while the picture may represent her at her happiest, to him it represents the worst part of his childhood, and he would rather not have such a blatant reminder of that staring him in the face in his own home 24/7. Or just put it in storage or something. And when mother-in-law asks about why it isn't in prominent display, tell her the truth then. Everyone sucks here. You and your husband are entitled to have whatever pictures you want in your home, but his attitude sucks. Happy couples don't just wake up one day and say, "Hey, let's get divorced." The fact that your husband and his brother see it this way tells me that your in-laws put a lot of work into putting on a good front for his kids until they just couldn't take it anymore. It's one thing for a little kid to want his mommy and daddy together, but your husband is old enough to know how adults' relationships work and should be glad his parents are happy now. I can't imagine how hurtful your husband's immature attitude is to your mother-in-law that she isn't allowed to be really happy. You suck for starting a fight over something that hasn't even happened when you could have just put the picture, if that's even what she gives you, in a closet. Your mother-in-law sucks a little for wanting to push something onto you because it sounds like you probably are getting this picture. But I'm giving her a little bit of a pass since she's had to put up with her son's poor attitude for 20 years. My husband is glad they're happy now. He is happy for his parents, but he wasn't happy at the same pace they were. Their happiest memories are being of their second marriages, with their blended family. But my husband and his brother's happy memories are of when their family was together, and they thought things were perfect. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for flipping out over expensive dog food? I have a 2-year-old corgi named Lila. She's perfectly healthy and was perfectly content with the dog food I have always purchased her. My boyfriend dog sats for me because I had to go on a week-long business trip to Dubai, but the trip ended up getting extended by 3 days due to flight delays and cancellations following a pretty nasty storm. Keep in mind that I buy the giant bag, 50 pounds, of dog food and it literally lasts damn near a month. This bag of food costs me roughly $40, depending on which store I go to and all that. Vet recommended brand, not cheap off brand. The only reason I get it that cheap is with my discounts because they sell it at her groomers. When I get home, I notice that my dog has put on a bit of weight. Not enough to be concerning, but her belly's definitely pudgier. When I get to my kitchen pantry, I notice that her 50-pound bag of food is untouched. And besides it is a 25-pound bag of organic steak and chicken something. A rather bag of food with a tag of $79.99 still on it. He purchased it with the money I left him for her in case of emergencies. We have porcupines that roam my yard, so I was thinking emergency vet situation. Not emergency, she needs better food. Apparently when I was gone, my boyfriend's mother came by, not uncommon, and basically told him the food I had been feeding her was crap and convinced him to switch over to this expensive brand. Not only that, but she also started feeding my dog literally cut up meat. Like stuck steak chunks or chicken chunks into my dog's bowl. Since I have been home, my pup has outright refused to touch the food she has eaten her entire life. And now she has even started trying to get up on the table when I'm preparing meals to try and get the human food. A habit I broke her of nearly a year and a half ago. To say I am absolutely freaking livid would be an understatement. The $40 bag I buy her is still a stretch due to my financial state. Just went through a budget cut and property tax increase of 9.8%. So I flipped out. I only flipped when my boyfriend's mom came over and immediately rummaging through her purse and grabbing steak bits that she brought over from a dog. I've always been clear on no table scraps. Always. The dog food was just the icing on the cake, and I flipped. Now I look absolutely crazy and have been deemed a crazy a-hole. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Your boyfriend and his mother completely overstepped by changing your dog's food without your knowledge or consent, and they stomped all over your boundaries by giving your dog table scraps. Agreed. Personally, if I were in Opie's shoes, endangering the health of my pet like this would be grounds for an immediate dumping. The fact that he bends so easily to his mom's whims isn't helping his case either. 100%. I'm a dog sitter, and I would never change or add any food items without explicit permission. Boyfriend is damn lucky that the dog wasn't allergic to any ingredients in the new diet. Not to mention, you shouldn't just switch diets. It needs to be done gradually. Plus, adding in the table scraps? Oh, hell no. Boyfriend's mom would not be allowed in my home. Maybe not boyfriend either. There may be some apologizing, real apologies with acknowledgements of what was wrong, and clear boundary setting with his mom may earn his place back. Not a day hole, and don't worry about your pup starving. Put down her food and she will eventually get hungry enough to eat. Even if it takes a few days. She'll be fine, really. I'd use the expensive stuff as a mix-in until it's gone, just so it doesn't go to waste. Not a day hole. Wait until you have children with his mother-in-law. She's a special person. That's what I was thinking. This is a future grandma that doesn't give a damn what mom wants for the kids. And a dad who will do whatever his mommy wants him to.